They have fallen and sustained injuries from seizures, developing marks of strength that remind them of their journey living with epilepsy. Now, today being International Epilepsy Day with the theme of friendship and inclusion, we bring you stories from great men and women from around the world living with epilepsy. Their message being, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Thank you for joining us. My name is Aida Munzatsi, and Health Nuggets starts now. Omari Said, a 35-year-old living with epilepsy, abandoned and disowned by his family due to his condition. Despite this, Omari lives what anyone would term as a full and normal life. Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher, said, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Omari's scars not defining him, but reminding him of his epilepsy journey.
Mara alikuwa na ile hali ya kufitika, majeraha tele kwa uso.
Epilepsy is a neurological disorder in which brain activity becomes abnormal, causing seizures or periods of unusual behavior, sometimes loss of awareness. Omari is a true definition of hope and resilience. When life was bound to give him 1,000 reasons to cry, he found 1,000,000 reasons to smile again.
Alikataliwa na wakwao, walikuwa hawamjui. Ndio maana alipokuja hapa akapata na msaada wa kusaidiwa na polepole. Alikuwa na mamake hapa, lakini mamake naye akaga dunia. Sasa akabaki peke yake. Sasa akawa hana msaidizi wa kumsaidia isipokuwa mimi ndio nilipoingia hapa ndio niko namsaidia. Kufikia saa hii nashukuru Mungu anaendelea vizuri.
Kaunda Zuya, his caregiver, has stood by him. This indicating clearly the support that people living with epilepsy need.
Omari anahitaji wa karibu. Yaani tuwe karibu naye sana, tusimwache peke yake. Tuende kumsaidia.
Omari has sustained injuries from seizures he got under no supervision. His scars are a reminder to each of these episodes. Instead of them being painful memories, the scars are a source of strength. For Omari, these scars do not represent the number of times he might have fallen, almost losing his life, but the depth of his resilience and strength to fight on.
Wala mama piki. Wana kazi.
Epilepsy is a condition associated with many myths and misconceptions, spoken and spread every day, which can be stigmatizing to people like Omari living with epilepsy and their families. Many say that epilepsy is a curse, it's contagious, and that people living with epilepsy can't live a full normal life. Omari, with the help of his caregivers, has risen above the myths, considering they live in Malindi, one of the coastal regions where such beliefs have shaped their understanding of epilepsy.
Lakini saa hii anafanya kazi zake za mikono. Namuona hata mimi nashukuru kwa sababu bila nafanya, sasa mimi nasikia kufurahika.
Kifafa kiko na tiba. Kuna tiba juu ya kifafa ambacho unaweza pata daktari na akakupima, akaona pale ambapo kimefika, kwa sababu kiko na stages. Na tena kifafa kiko na hali nyingi, huja kwa hali nyingi. Sikuanguka tu na kufitika. Kuna kifafa chengine unaweza kuwa umekaa na ukasikia kama kwamba ile akili imechanganyikiwa. Kile nacho unaweza kupata kifafa kama kile. Si mwisho, wana kifafa si mwisho. Wala si kufa. Kabisa.
I actually started having seizures when I was probably 12 years old, 13 years old, but I didn't realize that's what was going on.
David Pound is among the 3.4 million people in the United States living with epilepsy. It was until 12 years of age when he started having seizures. However, he did not realize that epilepsy was the cause of the seizures until later on in life.
People would talk to me and I didn't understand what they were saying at the time, but I didn't know it was a seizure. I thought it was like a panic attack or something like that, and I didn't say anything to anybody because I didn't know that it was a seizure. Later on, I learned it was what's called a partial complex seizure, and so only part of your brain is being affected. It's really the neurons in your brain are firing, and so only part of my brain was being affected. And so if you were speaking to me right now and that was happening, I wouldn't be able to understand what you were saying, and it would look like I'm like just kind of staring and kind of funny.
With epilepsy, every case is different. David says through medication, he has been able to control his seizures. However, he remembers vividly his last epilepsy attack just a month ago.
And unfortunately, it was less than a month ago that I had my last seizure, and I think I missed it that day or something like that. And usually for me, it's when I'm asleep, when I'm in bed and I'm asleep, and that was the last time that I did. And I don't know if I would have known so well, but usually my wife knows, and usually it will wake her up, and so that was the last time. And it is depressing in the sense that, like, it hasn't happened in a long time, and it's felt like this has been taken care of, and then it feels like there's nothing, you know, you can do for it.
As the world marks International Epilepsy Day, it is evident that the public is ignorant about this condition, not just here in Kenya, but around the world, many not knowing what to do in case someone around them gets a seizure.
And in the States, there's not an idea of it being, you know, spiritual or from a dark magic or things like that. That's not right there. Some people wouldn't understand it. They might not know what's going on. If somebody fell down and had a seizure, they might not like realize what it is necessarily, but they wouldn't equate it to, you know, black magic or something like that. They wouldn't think of it that way, because there are lots of people in America who have epilepsy. And so that's a thing that people understand in general. They might not see it and think right away, oh, that's epilepsy. They might think this person's having a heart attack, or this person, you know, is just having some kind of stroke or something like that. But they wouldn't equate it with that.
Unlike many African countries where epilepsy is associated with powers of darkness, David is grateful that throughout his journey, no one has looked down upon him as someone living with epilepsy. Majority of those he interacts with can't even tell unless he mentions to them. And
I pretty much just say that's because there's not a big problem. There's not, you know, anything weird about somebody with epilepsy. You know, it's not a big problem. They're not weirdos. They're not, you know, something strange about them or something. They're just normal people just like you. And most people with epilepsy can treat it with medication almost completely. Like I said, some have a hard time finding that dosage that they need or that cocktail of drugs that they need. But for the most part, you wouldn't even know that somebody had epilepsy. You might work with somebody that has epilepsy. You might be neighbors with somebody that has epilepsy, and you might never know. Probably most people that I've been their pastor have no clue unless I talked about it while preaching in a sermon. And then they'd be like, wow, I never knew such a thing, because you don't look any different, you don't act any different. As a person living with epilepsy, one has to know his triggers for them to manage the condition, staying away from anything that would cause an attack. And some, they just have a really hard time finding it. And when they did a lot of tests on me from the neurologist, CAT scans and things like that, they weren't able to find out where does this originate. But it's really important to understand that it is medical. And so as they put me on prescription drugs, they were able to treat it pretty quickly. And so those partial complex seizures then went away. And so as long as I took the prescription drugs and stayed on that and really started to learn what is going on, they were able to treat it. Epilepsy knows no race, color, age, or gender. Anyone is at risk. Being a caregiver to a person living with epilepsy can change one's perspective of life, many learning to appreciate life and love those around them. Jen Pili is a mother of 5. Never did she imagine that her last-born daughter, Mercy Kwekwe, will develop epilepsy.
When the doctor broke the news to her, she couldn't believe it, neither did any member of her family. Living in Mazera's Mombasa County, where the condition to many is a curse, the community around them neglected and stigmatized them. Immediately, they realized one of them had epilepsy.
Kwa sababu huyu ni mtoto. Na mimi kama ni kuulizwa, kama unavyoniuliza saa hii, leo hii tumekuja sisi tunataka ugonjwa tu transfer. Ningesema utoeni kwake, unipatie mimi. Juu mimi nina hisia ya kwamba nikisikia unakuja pengine nitasikia kisozi nikae chini. Lakini yeye hatafahamu hana. So ninasema kwa nini Mungu alizungusha hiyo akaona ikuje tu kwa mtoto wangu.
After seeking treatment, she became hopeful about her daughter's future.
So kutoka anze hiyo kupata dawa bila kukosa amesaidika. Lakini sasa kule ili pale nyuma alikuwa akianguka wakati wowote saa yoyote, tena karibu hata mara 5 kwa siku. So kulingana na hiyo hali ndio ilimuaffect mpaka kichwa chake kikawa kimefura kila upande, majeraha hapo mwilini. Sasa hiyo ndio ilikuwa inasababisha ukosefu wa dawa.
If one member of the family has epilepsy, indirectly the rest are affected. This was not different with Mercy's case, as it forced some family members to quit their jobs to come take care of her.
Aninafu nilipotoka tu pale kwa jiko na yeye akawa attacked, akaangukia lile jiko sasa na kifua. So ilikuwa changamoto kwa sababu alikuwa amevaa nguo, hizo nguo ukijaribu kumuinua huyo mtoto anainuka na hilo jiko kwa sababu nguo zenyewe zilikuwa ni za nylon. Sasa zimeshikana na hiyo nguo na mwili wake ukimuinua. Ikabidi sasa nimweke chini nianze kuvuta hilo jiko, maana limeshikana na nguo ambazo alikuwa amevaa. Hata huko tumboni kuna majeraha sana. Ni vile tu akivaa yamefichika. Namshukuru Mungu pia kwa hilo.
Today she lives to give hope to other children and people living with epilepsy, with the scars on her body as a result of seizure, serving as a reminder that tough times don't last, but tough people do.
Kwa hivyo mimi ninaamini ya kwamba huu ugonjwa sio mwisho wa Mercy katika maisha yake.
The seizure episodes have taught Mama Mercy some virtues of love, being the greatest lessons in this journey of taking care of Mercy.
Kwa hivyo hapo kwanza kitu cha kwanza ni upendo, alafu uikubali ile hali, alafu mwambie Mungu basi akupatie. Manake kwa mtu tu hivi kwa akili zake na kwa nguvu zake unachoka. Na ukichoka basi unaweza kufanya lile ambalo si la sawa. Lakini ukiwa na ule upendo, alafu ukimwambia Mungu akusaidie. Na wale wengine walio karibu na wewe pia wakupatie nguvu na support. Basi mnaona hii hali haiwezi kuwalemea ama haiwezi kukulemea wewe ambaye uko karibu na huyo mwathiriwa. Kwa hivyo kwa yeyote yule ambaye pengine angekuwa anapitia hali hii, kwa ushauri wangu ningemwambia kitu cha kwanza, apply love. Hiyo ndio itamsaidia.
Despite the pain and challenges, she remains hopeful and patient as things are already starting to look up.
Well, just to inform you that epilepsy is treatable and manageable, and amongst the goals of treatment is to reduce the frequency of seizures. Now, about to share his story is Peter Nyete, who is a counseling psychologist, a trainer and a project coordinator at Amani Counseling Center and Training Institute. Peter, thank you so much for finding time to share your story with us.
Thank you and welcome, Aida.
Thank you. Now, one of the stories that you've always shared, or the stories that I've heard of you, is that when you tell people that you have epilepsy, no one believes that you do. Why is that?
Epilepsy is mainly associated with some visible signs like scars, because people always get convulsions and they hurt themselves. So people are always looking for a certain sign to show that this person has epilepsy. But for me, ideally, there's nothing much when you look at me that you can see. So people tend to believe that I don't have or I'm just playing games.
Well, I've just said that the goals of treatment is to reduce seizures. So when was the last time you had a seizure?
Last time I had a seizure was in 2012. I remember it was due to a lot of stress related to schoolwork and also my office work.
So recently you haven't experienced any?
All that time I've never had any seizure, and I'm really thankful to God and also the measures I've taken just to be able to ensure none comes about.
So what are some of these measures?
I think for me it's about being able to learn about my epilepsy. When does it, do convulsions come? What trigger these convulsions? So that now I can be able to manage these triggers so that none comes about. And also just being positive about all this issue. You know, it's not about the end of life with epilepsy. You can have epilepsy but lead a normal life as long as you have that positive outlook, not focusing so much on the heart and also not focusing about what will happen when I get a seizure, and life can continue very well.
Give us a story or your story of maybe seeking for employment.
The first time I sought employment, in fact I had trained in the hospitality industry, and it was really tough just being able to go and share with anybody that I have epilepsy, because I could already imagine the stigmatization that will come with it. So I used to hide that. But there's one hotel I worked in, a famous hotel in Nyeri, and one day I got a seizure while I was on duty. And that was the end of my work. They just came and told me, we cannot keep you because you will spoil the image of our institution.
So the challenges that you face, do people live, those that are living with epilepsy currently, do they face the same challenges?
Very much. In fact, even more than me. Because you know, when people just associate that your epilepsy, particularly, they see it as a curse or demon possessed, nobody will want to be with you. Nobody will want to take responsibility of you. So the best thing for them is to put you aside, to reject you, and then who is left there wanting to be with you?
And I would really like you to bring out how you maneuvered, like how did you make it?
For me, it got to a point, and I told myself, you know, my life is about me, not about other people. So I decided, let me live my life, not other people's life.
Well, there's one other thing that you love mentioning about your tooth. Maybe you can just share about it.
Yeah, I've got a cracked tooth. I don't know whether it can be seen. Yes, and this tooth, I got it back then. One time I got a seizure and I hit myself on a cabinet. But this tooth, for me, I like using it now like the mark to show that, yes, I have epilepsy. But again, it's not just a mark. No, sometimes when I look at the journey I've gone through and the gains I've gotten because of it, and people may not believe that I have epilepsy, I just want to maintain it. You know, like I have, I'm exempted from paying tax, but sometimes I may go to ask for to renew the tax exemption, and they're asking, so what can you show us that you have epilepsy? So I just like maintaining it and just also being an identity that I can identify or associate now with other people with epilepsy.
So are you still under medication? Are you under treatment or?
So I still take medication to manage, but the goodness also with epilepsy is as you go many years without seizures, the medication can be reduced and eventually even withdrawn.
So as the world marks International Epilepsy Day, what's your word?
For me, I feel it's a very good venture just marking this day, you know, recognizing that there are people who are living with epilepsy and having challenges. It's very good, but I also feel they still need to do much more so that people accept, one, the condition, that is creating awareness surrounding it, just letting people know it's not a curse or a person who is demon possessed. I also feel it's good that people are made to understand and accept themselves. You know, without accepting yourself, then you're fighting a battle which you'll never ever win. So there's need also for that, to be able now to make people understand and accept themselves and appreciate their journey. And also to make people have the confidence that they can still make it in life like any other person who does not necessarily have a disability or even epilepsy. And above and beyond that, the world just to come together and support this person with epilepsy, so that one day they can be self-reliant, they can be independent, rather than making them just be dependent on every other person this any other time.
We talked through these things. He said he knew someone in school who had epilepsy, and people didn't want to be around him then, and he had seizures, but people didn't understand it. Maybe they don't want to use the same utensils because then they think, I'm going to get that disease from them if I ever use the same spoon that they did, or you know, if this person falls down, they're going to bite my hand and then they won't let go, or just these funny, you know, ideas that people have. But the first thing is for any of those people to really get, it's not from witchcraft. It's not from, you know, your parents did something wrong and so now you're being cursed or something like that. So to understand it is a medical disease or disorder, however you want to look at that. And so be encouraged. It's not spiritual in that sense.
I hope that you've been motivated. Not just you who is living with epilepsy, but also you who is living with any condition or no condition. We are always happy to have you here on Health Nuggets. Thank you for your comments and suggestions. Until next Monday, my name is Aida Munzatsi. Be healthy, stay healthy, and always remember, your health matters.